Okay, so I'll be presenting an overview of the community that we are launching today. And the first thing I wanted to say is discovery is never by accident. So what do I mean by this? It means that whereas sometimes we think we stumble across new ideas, we stumble across a solution to a problem, or we stumble across a new hypothesis that needs to be tested in the lab, there's a context for that. It may seem like an accident, but there's a context. And that context is everything that we bring together as a community in our science, in our labs, in our colleagues, and our collaborations. And so what we're trying to do with our community of discovery is to enhance that context using technology, using formulas that have been discovered and greatly leveraged in the open source community. This is what Alexi was talking about. The open source community has a vibrant spirit of collaboration, brings people together to write very complex software. And coming from IBM, I can assure you that software is of a very high quality, so much so that it's primarily what companies like IBM, Red Hat, and others are selling. That is, they're selling software services around open source. The same can be true around science. And so with NCI, we've conceived of an open science community that's driven by the quality of what Alexi was talking about. That is, taking the scientific method and associating it with technology and particular strategies to create organic foundations for these different steps that you can contribute to, you here today. And so we're inviting you to participate. So what are we asking you to participate in? So one thing you can do is start by the link to the Medium article written by Alexi shown on the screen, and that will give you the broad view of open science in general. But what I'm here to talk to you about is what grew out of the National Cancer Institute and IBM's Ideas Lab on combination therapies for cancer treatment as sort of ground zero for the launch of this community. What we did was hosted 34 attendees from around the world, and this was a very vibrant exercise over 5 days. I wanted to thank Steve Becker, Jennifer Couch, Shannon Hughes, Dan Gallahan for partnering with IBM and making this possible. But what I want to leave you with is that from this has come, from these 7 projects that were developed over these 5 days, 5 projects have now been funded by NCI. And while this is a seedling type funding, primarily directed at data collection and data hosting, the opportunity around tools and contributing to open science in the context of these seedlings is what we want to tell you about, and you will hear from Steve on that. This exists today, and what we want to do is invite you to take on a different view of open collaboration and competition, which, as you know, through IBM's efforts and those of Sage Bionetworks has sort of blossomed over the past decade in the DREAM challenges. But instead of only being motivated by that competition, we want you to think about the Ideas Lab as a prototype for what's possible. That is collaboration around these different aspects of science. And so in the spirit of Tim Dunn, who led the Ideas Lab from No Innovation, I just wanted to quote one of the things from their website, which is that they believe the way to solve the world's most challenging problems is to gather diverse groups of researchers in person, or in the case of the open science community, virtually, and enhance their collective creativity. And they say on their website, this is No Innovation, which Tim leads and really sponsors and runs these Ideas Labs for NIH and others. To the surprise of participants, they come up with ideas that promise to make a significant impact on science. So we're thinking not only about idea generation, but execution of science. And what we want you to think about is that the community that came together in the Ideas Lab came up with some requirements. We had 2 sessions with Alexi leading them to sort of explore what is the use of open source in science that these teams that are now leading these seedlings have already identified. And more importantly, how do they find expertise to contribute to projects? Is it just a balkanized set of laboratories that sort of work independently of one another? Or is there any avenue for finding a way to bring people in to the projects that they are working on in an ad hoc and very dynamic manner, the way we see on a GitHub, for example, in an open source community? And then finally, where is the data and how do we get information on the community so that we can actually find where we fit in and contribute, such that the spotlight that's on these seedlings from the NCI also sort of is on us. And so they want easy use of tools, easy integration of tools and data, and easy scalability of tools and data. This was the message from the Ideas Lab. The seedling of open source science is what is already being used. These are things that are not surprising. These are multi-purpose tools for data analysis, data access, and data modeling. But we took it one step further. After the final takeaways from the Ideas Lab shown here, which is that software needs to be tailored to fit a scientist's needs, and we need more academic currency. That is, our role as organizers of this community is to facilitate a transformation of how tools are leveraged, how they're applied, and how they're discovered, not only within the lab, but in the community as a whole. And so what they told us they wanted is to move towards joint projects rather than a platform for sharing resources. So they don't want a Facebook of science. They want a way to actually create projects and dynamically bring people into them in a manner that is both motivating, solves problems, and helps the community as a whole to move forward. They think that the key for success is to build this community, and we took that very seriously. And finally, they want a platform that promotes developing shared projects. So we took, as I said, that very seriously, and we began by wondering, maybe we just need to have people talk about their research in a context that's tool-centered, not data-centered, and not necessarily only about the context for discovery in the science that they're doing. So we created the AI for Mechanism Study Group, which Maria Rapsaminiki will speak to you remotely about shortly. You will also hear before that for around each of these seedlings, which we are inviting you to join through the community of discovery. But this Cancer Mechanism Study Group is also open, and you can find a link to it at the end of both my presentation and Mariana's. So the idea of the Mechanism Study Group is to basically allow people to create content and share it, not only on a one-time webinar, but in a context of a searchable sort of database for both tutorials, so that an AI researcher, as Alexi was saying, who works sort of in their day job in an area of science or mathematics that is relevant to industry, can also leverage their skills and learn about a problem in cancer to actually deliver a solution, much as an open source coder will deliver a solution on a project that they have a particular interest in. The study group's been launched. You will hear from Mariana that's been successful. So over the past 4 months, we've had these things called cycles, which you hear about. We've already created content, both from IBM researchers, as well as from Tatiana Mitti from Moffitt. We'll hear from Leonard Harris in 2 weeks and Andrea Marislik. We'll also have each of these on a study group panel in a moment. So with the community of accelerated discovery in cancer, I just wanted to point out that we're bringing together pieces of a puzzle. We propose that the next steps are close collaboration between partners such as Sage BioNetworks, National Cancer Institute, Foundation for National Institutes of Health, IBM, and most importantly, you. You really are key to this project, to this success, and this community of accelerated discovery is ultimately defined by you. We're not in this to steer, to host, to make data, data agreements. We're here to just basically provide the context for this to grow organically. And so the study group is one step along that path. We are also in discussions with Sage BioNetworks to host a campaign portal, much like you see on Synapse today for the DREAM challenges, but it will be more about collaboration and bringing people into a searchable community for talent, tools, and data. And ultimately, the community of accelerated discovery, which is being launched right now, is available and accessible through the study group, as well as through our website, which Mariana Repson-Minicki has set up. So if you would like to take a look, here is the QR code, and I will now move on to the next part of the discussion, which I think is being led by Steve. Steve?